Yo, what's up everybody, it's Fright Delight, and let's talk about Halloween 2 made in 2009. This is when movies like The Last House on the Left, The Fourth Kind, and Splice were made, which is pretty much a movie where two scientists create an alien in the lab and has a sexual encounter with the very alien they raised. Probably the worst way I could explain it, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, Halloween 2 follows Laurie a year after the events of the last film trying to get over her trauma, but encounters the same man responsible for her trauma in the first place, Michael Myers. From what I understand, the general reception of the film is that people dislike the direction the movie took, especially when it comes to Michael's visions of his mom on the white horse. Another thing people found questionable is the cohesiveness of the storyline, but from what I've seen on the positive side, the gore within the film was as extreme as you would want it to be in a slasher. The next positive I've seen was the film is dark and gritty like a grindhouse movie, which added to the tension in a few different scenes. So will Halloween 2 outdo its predecessor, or will it fall into the abyss of forgotten sequels? Well, you'll know how I feel after I recap the movie and end it off with a tier list. Now let's stop playing and follow Laurie through her trauma. The movie starts off with a definition of a white horse that doesn't make the film any better before we cut to the aftermath of what happened to Laurie in the last film. As she's walking down the street, Sheriff Brackett pulls up and takes the gun out of her hand and gets her to the hospital. We find out Loomis survived the attack and is getting taken in the ambulance. Also, Michael gets tied up and taken to the county mortuary, and while the drivers are on the way there, they have a very weird conversation about necrophilia.
I heard a story about a couple of meat wagon boys fucking corpses over in Essex. I ain't never had the urge till tonight.
That Rob Zombie dialogue is sometimes beyond comprehension. Anyways, as the two get deeper into the conversation, they stop paying attention to the road and end up hitting a cow with the same density as vibranium, killing the main driver almost instantly. The pastor is somehow alive and attempts to call for help, and as soon as he does, Michael pops around the corner and says, "You need my assistance?" before slicing his neck in an intense way. Michael then has a vision of his mother with the white horse before he slides off to the hospital where Laurie is. Speaking of Laurie, after she got patched up, she decides to dip out of the room so she can visit her friend Annie, who's in much worse condition. While she's having a moment with her, Nurse Ma comes in and walks through the hallway to get her back to her room, but gets a call and has to leave. Laurie ends up walking back towards the front office, but comes across that same nurse bleeding out, begging for help in the worst way. She knocks over the monitor and probably would have held on to Laurie if she didn't run away. Michael pops around the corner and finishes Nurse Ma off like a Mortal Kombat fatality. He isn't playing any games following Laurie downstairs. She rushes outside and falls into a dumpster full of dead bodies, presumably killed by the healthcare system. Laurie finds the strength to get out the dump and limps outside through the parking lot screaming for help. She gets to the lot gate but doesn't have the black gene like Rachel did in Halloween 4, so instead of jumping it, she finesses her way in a little security shack. The security officer shows up, but so does Michael, and uses an axe to chop dude in the back like firewood. Laurie hides under the table, but Michael isn't a fool and bursts through the wall, getting right to her and axing her right in the... Wait a minute, this was a dream the whole time? Man, what a cop-out. It looks like Laurie is staying at Sheriff Brackett's crib with Annie. After breakfast, Laurie goes to therapy that doesn't seem helpful while we catch up with Loomis. He's going to a press conference for the release of his new book, The Devil That Walks Among Us. The way he talks to his assistant screams asshole. He talks to the press about the book and gets asked some uncomfortable questions that makes him crash out verbally.
Look, let me make things nice and sparkling clear. Michael Myers is fucking dead.
Apparently a gunshot to the head won't kill Michael, and it doesn't look like it slowed him down at all, especially when a group of deer-killing rednecks come across him trying to intimidate him. The two guys beat him down without a second thought for no reason until their girl pops out the truck stopping them. Once they get back into the truck, Michael raises back up like a phoenix and puts his mask on ready for his get back. He walks up wasting everyone in the truck one by one, and when he gets to the same woman that stopped him from getting jumped, he thanks her by kissing her heart with his knife. Then right after that, he has a weird ass vision of his younger self and his mother. The next day we follow low-life Loomis talking to the press in front of the Myers house in bad taste.
Bad taste? Bad taste?
You heard what the hell I said, Loomis. Actually, you can bask in the ambience of shit coming out your mouth. Let's cut to Laurie and see what she's up to. It looks like she's crashing out while she's talking to her therapist. She's begging for some Xans to take the pain away since she's out of medication. The acting by STC is incredible. I can feel the trauma oozing out of her, making me a bit emotional. It's sad to see, and even sadder when she gets home and starts arguing with Annie. Both of them has gone through so much, and you can tell it's the trauma speaking through them, not actually how they feel about each other. While that's going on, Hobo Myers makes his way to the same strip club his mother used to work at. He comes across one of the workers taking out the trash and stares him down. The dude tries to intimidate Michael, but he's as scary as the Weenie Hut Jr. mascot. He even punches him in the face and breaks his hand in the process. Michael tosses his weak ass to the ground and stomps on his face. He makes his way to the inside of the strip club, seeing another vision of his mother. It kind of reminds me of Freddy vs. Jason when Freddy was posing as Pamela Voorhees and controls Jason to kill the Elm Street kids. Anyways, Michael puts his murder mask on and continues his rampage on the last two in the club. He grabs the dude and snaps his forearm like a Twix. The lady slides off while Michael catches up and bangs her head against the glass viciously until she's unrecognizable. Michael is a man on a mission. After wasting the entire strip club crew, he makes his way to Haddonfield to pay low-life Loomis a visit. Back with Lori reading the book Loomis wrote, she finds out some disturbing information that sends her into hysteria. It's revealed to her that she's the sister of Michael Myers and her real name is Angel Myers. Man, Loomis is one fat asshole airing out Lori to the public like that. And I can only imagine the emotions running through her head reading that. Later that night, she grabs her belongings in distress and heads off to her homegirl's crib. Their names are Bria and Angela. She cries to him about what she just learned about herself. And while that's going on, Loomis gets live interviewed by Chris Hardwick from The Talking Dead, which I never realized until my last rewatch. He talks to Loomis in a way that makes him feel disrespected. So much so that when he gets to his hotel room, he rewatches the interview in disgust, but he deserves it. When we catch back up with Lori, she's at a party that her friends made her go to get her mind off the intense information that was brought to her attention. After a while of partying and getting wasted, Angela dips off away from her friends to get frisky with a werewolf, but he has to drain the main vein. Michael finally makes his appearance there and stabs him in the back like a person persuaded by the FBI. He then makes his way to the van and chokes the shit out of Angela like Granddad Willie chokes dogs.
I grab a dog, and I choke him, and I kick the shit out of him.
While this is happening, Sheriff Brackey sends a deputy to his house to watch over his daughter Annie to make sure she's safe. Unfortunately, Michael has teleporting powers and appears in her bathroom closet, doing a number on Annie and the cop that was supposed to be watching her. We find out when Lori gets dropped off to her house, the cop that was supposed to be watching Annie got cooked by Michael sometime earlier. Once Lori gets inside the house with her homegirl Bria, they buzz down on some cookies, then make their way upstairs. As they make their way up there, they immediately come across a bloody scene. Opening the bathroom door, Lori finds her friend Annie laid out on the floor, sliced up from head to toe. Lori tells Bria to call for help while she stays with Annie holding her lifeless body. Bria goes outside to get the house number, and right as she's providing the information, Michael snatches her back in the house, then stabs her in the chest multiple times. It turns out Annie is alive, but just barely. Lori is doing everything she can to keep her best friend living. In a heart-wrenching scene, Annie finally succumbs to her wounds, but Lori doesn't have much time to mourn because Michael is already at the door bursting through to get her. Lori rushes out of there into the dark, making her way through the woods into oncoming traffic to get help. While she attempts her escape, the cops are late like they usually are, and just when you thought Annie's death couldn't get any sadder, her dad, Sheriff Brackett, makes his way upstairs and witnesses the aftermath of Michael's attack. In my opinion, Brad Dourif's acting in this scene is impeccable. And now that I think about it, this version of Annie may have the saddest death in the Halloween franchise. Yeah, most definitely. At this point, Sheriff Brackett is on a mission to find Lori and get revenge for his daughter. Speaking of Lori, she was able to get help, but it was short-lived as Michael catches up and puts the Good Samaritan through the windshield like a crash dummy. He then picks up the car effortlessly, using nothing but brute strength to flip it over into a ditch and takes out a knocked out Lori into an abandoned house. Sometime later that night, Lori wakes up and is encountered by a ghostly apparition of her mother and is held down by a younger version of Michael. Now, before they can get started with whatever weird shit they got going on, a helicopter shines down on the house. It turns out a news station is showing the house being surrounded by the police unfolding live, which is put on TV right for Loomis to see. He decides he doesn't want to be low-life Loomis anymore and immediately makes his way to the scene. As soon as he gets there, Sheriff Brackett wails on him and tells him to
Get the fuck out of here.
Loomis is determined to show him and everyone else that he's changed his ways and rushes his way into the house, finding Lori being held down by her own thoughts. No amount of reasoning with Lori gets her to come to her senses. After a minute or two, Michael has enough of him and tackles Loomis through the wall. Michael takes his mask off and screams at Loomis to die before stabbing him one good time and getting shot by the cops in the cheesiest way. After the shots are fired, Lori walks out seemingly in a trance, picking up Michael's knife, and at this moment, a few random shots are fired at Lori. Damn. Oh, well, it doesn't look like that matters because sometime later she's in a psych ward looking down the hall at her mother's apparition walking towards her as she lets off a subtle smirk, ending the movie. Alright homies, that was the end of Halloween 2 made in 2009. A film that suffers heavily not only from the lack of execution, but from the lack of dialogue like the last film, the lack of characters, the lack of fucking everything. Even though I have issues with this film, I have some positives starting with the acting, primarily from the main characters portraying Lori and Sheriff Brackett, and then Michael as well. I honestly think she outdoes herself portraying Lori in this movie, and it's a shame because she hasn't been in more stuff, because she was able to draw emotion out of me more than anyone on screen outside of Brad Dourif. Now, this version of Sheriff Brackett, in my opinion, is better than the original. And that's not a knock on the original actor, but from the first Halloween reboot going into the sequel, he brought a depth to the character, and not only that, he made me care more for Annie because of his feelings for her. When he walks into the bathroom seeing his daughter's lifeless body, the reaction he gives me is something I could see myself having if I had a kid of my own. Also, I didn't mention this in my last review, but when he sees his daughter deceased for the first time, the tone he uses when he calls out to her really made my heart drop, which contributed to my opinion that Annie's death was the saddest of the franchise.
Annie? Sweetie? Annie.
Now, in my opinion, Tyler Mane's interpretation of Michael rivals the original by being the opposite of the suave killer in the background. In this film, he's a brute killer that's in your face and has no problem being seen. His movements are seamless on camera and doesn't seem stiff like the other movies in the franchise. His portrayal leads right into my next positives, which is the brutality along with the gore. He murders his victims in a way that shows his hatred more than anything. From the intense decapitations to the seemingly endless stabs on the individuals he comes across to flipping cars over. This man was an unstoppable machine of madness that made me almost tense up every time he was on screen, aside from the hobo scene. And the fact that there's a scene to where he lifted an entire car to get the lorry was awesome to say the least. Now on to the negatives, which derailed this movie to the gulag. Start with the entire dream sequence in the beginning of the film. What made me frustrated is that this was probably the best part of the movie, but it seems like the filmmakers, Rob Zombie, couldn't figure out a way that makes sense for Lori to escape Michael's rampage other than her waking up from a dream. I can't stand when movies have dream sequences that are put there to shock the viewer, especially when it's the best part of the film. It's mostly because the scene and everything that happens within it doesn't matter. And also the fact that we have the movie start out that way is like a slap in the face to me. Another negative I have for the film is the white horse visions Michael and Lori have throughout the entire runtime. Now after the dream sequence, I didn't need any more visions, especially of a dead mother that seemingly loved both children before she ended her own life. I'm sure the film was using that as a way the trauma was affecting the siblings, and that's no problem, but the amount of times I've seen a young Michael, the mom, and the white horse was nauseating. And what's funny is that the excerpt in the beginning of the film was there so the audience could understand, but all it did was kill time, making the runtime longer. Speaking of the runtime, that's my next negative. There's no reason this film should have been almost 2 hours. The pacing of the film is all over the place, moving at an insane speed in some parts. Then in the middle of the movie, it moves at a snail's pace, then doesn't really pick up momentum going into the final act. And my last negative for the movie is the dialogue. Now, I think this is just a Rob Zombie thing because out of the few movies I've seen outside the Halloween franchise, every time he's the single writer or director of a movie, the dialogue is vulgar for the sake of being vulgar. And he writes people to say things that's more shocking than using it to weave the story together. Now, I will say that the dialogue is better in this film than the last, but that doesn't say much. It seems like all the other side characters had nothing to say outside the main cast, and even some of the main characters had some mundane interactions and didn't garner any attention until the emotional scenes started to come on. If it wasn't for the acting and some of the gore, this film would have been straight shit, but because of those things, alongside some of the other positives I said, I'll put this right above that and put it right into the snooze fest category. Well, homies, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for making it this far. Let me know what you thought about Halloween 2 in the comments below, even if you disagree with me. And if you enjoyed this video and have any movies you want me to cover in the future, put that in the comments below too. Go ahead and have a vision of that like and subscribe button to see more reviews like this one, and I appreciate y'all coming to a Fright Delight. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.